For 400 years, Morgoth regrouped within Angband, sending small warbands out to harass the Noldor and recruit others to their side. Finally, when Morgoth was at his strength, he had the mountain of Thangorodrim erupt in a great river of fire. This killed a great number of the elves besieging Angband, and allowed for one of Morgoth's lieutenants, in Glaurung, father of dragons, to lead an army of orcs, trolls, and balrogs in the battle of Dagor Bragollach. They quickly conquered much of the north, killing Angrod and Aegnor in their conquest of Dorthonion. Although the Noldor were now reinforced by their human allies in the Edain, the Dark Lord's forces were able to defeat many of the sons of Feanor, scattering their armies at Lothlan, Maglor's Gap, and the Pass of Aglon. Enraged by the slaughter of his people and allies in the north, King Fingolfin personally rode to Angband and challenged Morgoth to single combat. Though the Noldor king died in the fighting, he was able to wound Morgoth several times, even stabbing him in the foot with his final breath. With the death of Fingolfin, his son Fingon became king. They would continue to fight small skirmishes for many years, until Nirnaeth Arnoediad, the Battle of Unnumbered Tears. King Fingon gathered a great host, including many dwarven and human allies, but the sons of Feanor, with their ever-present lust for the Silmarils, began to destroy Elven unity. When the kingdom of Doriath gained a Silmaril after Beren and Luthien stole it from Morgoth, Celegorm and Curufin vowed to destroy them if they did not surrender the jewel. Because of this and many other actions, both the elves of Doriath and the elves of Nargothrond refused to participate in the battle. The result was catastrophic. The Dark Lord's forces were victorious, aided by the Easterlings, who had pledged their support to the elves, and instead betrayed them at a crucial time. The forces of Fingon and his allies were utterly crushed, with all major cities in Beleriand destroyed in the fighting. Only Doriath and Nargothrond, the two realms who did not participate, survived. Eventually, however, both elven cities would fall, leaving Morgoth in control of nearly all Beleriand, and refugees were gathering in Arvenien, one of the only small areas not yet under Morgoth's control. Desperate for help, Earendil, the half-elven, and his wife Elwing would take the Silmaril formerly held in Doriath across the sea to Aman, where they would offer it as a gift to the Valar and beg their aid in the war against the Dark Lord. Moved by their plea, the Valar assembled a great army of Maiar, Vanyar elves, and Noldor who had remained in Aman. They were also joined by the Great Eagles and sailed upon the ships of the Teleri east towards Middle-earth. Once arrived, they joined the elves, humans, and dwarves, creating the largest host ever assembled, and went to war. They fought a great battle, later called the War of Wrath, and after 40 years of fighting, the forces of the Valar were gaining ground and defeating the enemy forces. Desperate to turn the tide of battle, Morgoth released his ultimate weapon. For the first time, the winged dragons were released, and quickly they devastated the allied forces. But when things looked their worst, Earendil the Mariner arrived in a skyship, along with a host of great eagles, and they destroyed many of the dragons, even killing Ancalagon the Black, largest and greatest among them. At last, the forces of the Dark Lord were defeated, and Morgoth was captured, once again bound by the chain Angnor, and taken to Aman. There he was tried for his crimes and sentenced to death. He was beheaded, and his spirit banished from the world, sent through the door of night to the timeless void, unable to return to Arda until the final battle of Dagor Dagorath at the end of the world. The final two Silmarils were recovered by the Maya Eonwe, however they were later stolen by the last two surviving sons of Feanor, Maedhros and Maglor, who killed the guards protecting them and finally took possession of the jewels. Though they were prepared to fight to the death to fulfill their oath, they were instead allowed to leave unharmed with the jewels, so that no more blood would be shed. The Silmarils would burn their hands as they held it, and ultimately brought them only misery. Maedhros would kill himself, falling into a fiery chasm, while Maglor would toss the jewel into the ocean, and live out his days wandering the shores of Middle-earth, sad and alone. The end of the war saw a landmass devastated, with many western territories collapsing into the sea. The destruction of Beleriand saw a great displacement of the tribes of men, who were rewarded for their efforts in the war with a new homeland in the island of Numenor, which was raised in the middle of the Sea of Belegir. When the Valar returned west, they issued a pardon for the Noldor, and many joined them in returning to the Undying Lands. Others, however, stayed behind and built new homes, following leaders like Gil-galad, Galadriel, Celeborn, Elrond, and Orofer, who had all chosen to stay behind. Though it would be many years before the elves, dwarves, and humans of Middle-earth could recover from the devastation of the war, they had at last emerged victorious, with Morgoth soundly defeated. And yet, evil remained. Sauron, chief lieutenant of Morgoth, survived the wars and remained free, and as the world entered the Second Age, he would rise as the new Dark Lord and the greatest enemy of the free peoples of Middle-earth.